Hey everybody, here we are today. We're at the northwest branch of the Miramichi River. In behind me is Red Bank and Sunny Corner. Every once in a while you'll probably see some splashes in behind me. What that is striped bass, and that's why we're here today. We're here to try to get on video them spawning. So what's happening right now is today, May 26th, the DFO has closed this section of the river off to any kind of fishing. And that is just to protect these fish so that they can spawn in peace. And it's all part of a conservation effort. So basically what's happening is that you're going to have one large female, and she's going to be releasing eggs, and she's surrounded by a bunch of males, which are smaller. And as she's releasing the eggs, they're trying to fertilize those eggs. Those eggs are then going to stay in the river in this section here, which is fresh water, for 3 days. They're then going to hatch, live off of their egg yolk for about a week, and then they'll start eating zooplankton. Eventually, about 35 to 50 days later, they're going to start making their way down into the more brackish water, and then finally into the ocean, where they'll stay. For the males, they'll stay in the ocean for roughly 3 years, come back and spawn, but the females will take 5 years out in the ocean before they return and are ready to spawn. Another interesting thing, in behind me, there's these different blocks, and what they're called block bottoms. And originally they were made to hold the logs that were then being used further down in Miramichi at the lumber mill. Now they've just basically made these artificial islands. So by mistake, 100 and so years later, we have these beautiful natural islands which are actually kind of diverting the river. The Miramichi River is a very important river when it comes to striped bass. In the Maritimes, there are only 2 known rivers where spawning striped bass still exist, and that is here at the Miramichi River and also Scuba in Nova Scotia. Historically, there were 2 other rivers, the Annapolis River in Nova Scotia and also the St. John River. And if you go to St. John River today, you're able to still catch striped bass. Those striped bass are most likely striped bass that are moving up from the United States or from over in Nova Scotia. There is no known distinct population that lives in the St. John River, although there is new research that's being done, and they're finding some evidence that possibly a small remnant of the original population still exists in the St. John River. The reason that there's not a distinct population of striped bass in the St. John River is due to a few factors. After the construction of the Mactaquac Dam, the population started to decline, as well as commercial fishing industry, as well as the lowering of the water quality, all had their effect, and the population basically collapsed. So now when you're fishing in that river, you're more likely to catch a fish that had come up from the United States than something that was actually born in the St. John River. Although all of these fish are striped bass, they do have distinct genetics. So striped bass in the Miramichi River, if you caught a fish here today, it would not be the same fish that you would catch in the Bay of Fundy, as those migration routes do not overlap. So some striped bass travel further than others. These American ones, they come all the way up from Florida to the Bay of Fundy. The ones in Nova Scotia, in the Bay of Fundy, they usually stay in the Bay of Fundy, and then the ones in Miramichi will stay up in Miramichi. So they are distinct, and genetically they know that they are not intermixing. So it's important to protect not just one river and one group of striped bass, but to protect all of the individual populations found in all of these different rivers. And hopefully someday we're able to bring back that population to the St. John River. So you can see where the striped bass are spawning, and then as the boats come through, it's kind of disturbing them, so they're really moving around quite a bit. So we're back here now. It's a high tide, so we have to dive at the high tide because that's when they're mostly going to be spawning. So they need the high tide because when they're releasing their eggs, they want their eggs to stay suspended in the water column, and to do that it's easier when it's at the high tide. The issue is if the eggs do not stay suspended, they'll either sink and they'll be in a layer where there's less oxygen, they could die, or they're gonna come up to the surface and again they'll also die. So now I'm gonna get my gear on, I'm gonna get in the water, and we're gonna get some underwater footage. So we got a little sun shower. It's all right for me because I'm already gonna get wet. Everybody else in the boat, they're gonna have to deal with it. We got no cover. The rain stopped and here comes a rainbow. All right, let's go. So far, they seem to be very curious about what I am. I'm trying not to interfere with them or touch anything because I want them to concentrate on what they're here to do, and that's spawn. But seeing a lot of them around me, there's not very many big ones, so I assume they're all males that are coming around. I didn't know what to expect when I got in here. Would the bubbles from my scuba gear scare them off and they wouldn't come around me at all? Would they be attracted to me? Would they bump into me? Would they try to spawn with me? Not sure, but everything's gone pretty well so far. So now I'm gonna try to find one of these spawning balls and hopefully I can get some footage of it for us. So I just got bumped for the first time on my way there to that mating swarm. One came and hit me in the leg. I didn't have it on camera, but it did startle me for a second. As I got close to the bubble of the swarm there, they just kind of dissipated. So I'm not sure if the bubbles are making them dissipate, but all the other ones seem to be really curious about me and kind of bumping into me. So it's interesting. So that's interesting there. I tried that strategy to just stay still and in place, and they came to me, swarmed around me, and I even seen some of the males hitting each other. So they'd swim into each other to chase each other off. So that was cool. They're not always just trying to avoid each other. So unfortunately, earlier we were trying to do a test flight with my drone and it flipped over, landed on the ground, and the gimbal broke. But now I'm gonna try to fly the drone, and I'm not gonna be able to do any pitching with it, so you're not gonna see a really crazy dramatic shots, but I'm gonna do my best to see, to show you what it looks like from above one of these swarms. So I hope you enjoy it. So I just got out of the water, and I'd have to say that's one of my favorite dives I've ever done in my whole life. The best strategy for me was just to sit at the bottom and wait for them to come to me. I tried to get close to a couple of the swarms, the balls where they're mating, but I decided it's not worth disturbing them to try to get some footage, so I gave up on that idea. Unfortunately, we won't be able to see them actually trying to fertilize the eggs today, but maybe someday in the future. I did find one bass lure, so this is basically what they're using to try to catch bass here in the river. It's a pretty big hook, really. So how many bass you've seen here today? It's not always been that way. And back in the early 1990s, they estimated that there was only about 5,000 striped bass that were coming into this river and breeding every single year. So at that point, the government came in and they put a stop to all the fishing here for basically 20 years. And after 20 years, they opened up the fishery again, and another 10 years from then, which is today, they're estimating that the numbers are up to 250,000 individuals coming into this river every single year, and the overall population is estimated to be about 1 million. So for all of you guys in the St. John River that are catching these striped bass, if you're catching a really large one, like a trophy bass, most likely it's a female, and it's probably more important for that bass to be back in the river than to be on your dinner plate. So the next time that you're out there fishing, just consider taking a picture and letting her go. Try to catch a smaller bass, most likely it's a male, and you've seen how many males there are compared to females. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.